What's going on, guys? Welcome back to my channel. Today's video is another episode of the Never Seen It series where I give you my thoughts and opinions about movies I've never seen before in my entire life. Do I love them? Do I hate them? But most importantly, do I recommend them to you? There's always a best and there's always a worst. Everything else kind of just falls in between. So with today's stack of movies, I'm going to attempt to move fairly quickly, and I probably say that before every single video for Never Seen It series, but I truly do mean it for this one because I've been watching a lot of horror films. Everything in my stack is a horror movie. So we got to get started. What was my favorite? What was the best of the bunch this latest round? Surprisingly enough, for me, it was The Conjuring. And I say surprisingly because if you guys have been watching my channel long enough, you already know my thoughts and feelings about ghost movies, possession films, that subgenre of horror. That's not my go-to. I don't gravitate towards that subgenre, but I am trying to open up my mind and watch more films that are in that subgenre. So I figure The Conjuring was a good place to start. I was so enthralled by this movie, especially how much I enjoyed it. And I think the reason why I enjoyed it so much is because it is based on true events. Now, granted, when you make a movie based on true events, liberties are always taken. I'm sure it didn't exactly happen the way it was portrayed in this film, but something happened there. And just knowing that something happened, even a millimeter similar to this, is frightening. That is absolutely frightening and totally scary. And that's the reason why this was the #1 movie of the batch of this latest Never Seen It stack. So I really enjoyed The Conjuring, so much so that I want to watch The Conjuring 2. This is the reason why I've avoided the entire Conjuring universe, like this entire storyline, like The Nun, the Annabelle movies. I've had no desire to watch any of them, but now with The Conjuring, this movie cracked open that door. So I am now kind of more interested and more accepting of movies like this. So there we go. I finally watched The Conjuring, people, and I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it. All right, let's move on. Here we go to the Ginger Snaps trilogy. Now, I had seen the first film one time prior. I enjoyed it. I don't normally gravitate towards werewolf movies, but I enjoyed the film. It was different because we're focusing on females. For some reason with werewolf movies, it's usually always about men or boys, but we're talking about females here, so that was different. I enjoyed that aspect, plus they're sisters. So I like that as well. You got the sisterly bond there. They're very close in the movie. They're outcasts. They're picked on. And then one of the sisters is bitten by a werewolf, and slowly during the course of the movie, during the first film, she changes. And the other sister is dealing with this and what happens. So the first film, solid. Really enjoy it. Movie #2, still good, but in a different way, because we do lose one sister from the first film. I mean, this movie's been out forever, so I'm not going to say spoiler alert. We lose one sister from the first movie, and it kind of loses that dynamic of that sister relationship. So they try to like substitute a sister. They bring in a younger female character to kind of have that sister bond with the other leading character. It doesn't really work because that's not her sister. We know it's not her sister. So, I mean, it's still good. It's still an interesting movie. I was into it. There was some points here and there where it was weird, don't get me wrong, but it wasn't as good as the first. And then the third movie, I'll just straight up admit, I fell asleep halfway through. And I feel like it's not the most highly entertaining, aka meaning kind of boring movie. It is set back in time. I'm not really sure when, like pilgrims, like 1700, I don't know. I don't know time periods, but it's set back in the day with the two original sisters as these old-timey characters and what they're going through, which I actually thought was an interesting concept when I read it on the back here. but I don't know if I was bored or if I was tired. So I will have to rewatch the third one, but overall, it's not the worst trilogy, but it's not the best. I would say just play it safe. If you can just pick up the first movie, you're good. You don't necessarily need 2 and 3. But I'm happy I have that, don't get me wrong, because my friend Tony P sent that to me, and I'm very grateful to have it. So thank you, Tony P. All right. Saturday the 14th. This was goofiness beyond belief, but of course it is. It's obviously a parody off of, not a parody off of Friday the 13th, but it's just like overall weirdness and goofiness and total spoof of everything horror. And if you're into that, then this movie's right up your alley. I'm not necessarily into that. I was watching it kind of like, what am I watching? Like the entire time. It was just so weird and over the top. But if this is your thing, then you would enjoy it. I didn't really care for it. I'm probably going to keep it though. I won't get rid of it, but I'm not really sure when I'm going to watch it again, is the question. Night School is up next. This is a generic slasher film from the 80s. There's really nothing new with this one. Like, oh my God, it's the killer in Night School. Like, that's it. There's nothing like, wow, a big twist or a reveal. You know, like, there's nothing like that really separates it or puts it over the top. It's just one of those forgettable 80 cheesy movies. That's it. So you don't need Night School. I would say you can bypass on this one. It's not necessary to have in your collection by any means. All right, this one I had hopes for and I was bored, and that is Relic. This one was sent over to me from a subscriber, and I looked at it, I'm like, oh, this one actually looks pretty cool. Got this old lady on here. She's looking kind of weird and wacky, and it's a haunted house situation. So going with my spirit and possession, you know, like wanting to open that door. I'm like, yeah, let's watch Relic. I was so bored watching this movie. Was anyone else bored with Relic? I'm not even sure I'm going to keep this because when am I going to watch this again? I don't really know. And it's a shame. It's a nice slip. I like the slip cover, but I don't think I'm keeping this. I don't know. It's going. It's leaving. I got to make decisions. It's going to go. All right, next up. Double pack. We have the Crazies and also Let Me In. This has been in my collection for a while, and I said, you know what? Now is the time. And I watched both back to back. Really enjoyed the Crazies. Not so much a fan of Let Me In. And this may surprise a lot of you because it is a vampire movie. I like vampires. You guys know this. But I just wasn't over the moon about it. So the Crazies, I really enjoyed it. Great acting. Timothy Olymph, however you say his name, I just really like him as an actor. He's the lead in this movie. He's the sheriff of the town. We'll block Let Me In. I'm talking about the Crazies. So the Crazies, we got Mickey from Scream 2 is the sheriff in the Crazies. And pretty much we have an accidental zombie invasion happening upon his town, and no one really knows what the heck is going on. What's the point of me doing this? No one knows really what's going on. Everyone's trying to figure out what's happening. Like, this gigantic mistake happened, and instead of the government like kind of accepting their role of what happened and what they did, they're just like killing everyone in the town. Like, it doesn't even matter. They're just annihilating everyone. So they're trying to get away, trying to get to the next safe place. So I really enjoyed the Crazies. That was good. Now Let Me In, on the other hand, I enjoyed the basic story, the core point of the story, which is you have Chloe Grace Moretz as this little girl. Well, she's like a young teenager. I would say, looking at her, she's like 13 or something. She's a vampire. Okay, so that means she's isolated. She doesn't have any friends. So she winds up living in this building right across the hall, I believe, from this boy that's getting bullied at school. And pretty much the same thing. They're feeling the same feelings. They're isolated. They don't have many friends. So they kind of meet and they bond over this. I like that whole idea right there. but I felt like the movie was very repetitive. It was kind of like the same thing night after night after night. They meet in the courtyard, then this happens, then the next day they meet in the courtyard, then this. I felt like nothing really like nothing. It wasn't moving a lot for me. It may sound weird, but I was expecting more from the film. That's all. I just wanted more action. I don't know what I wanted. I just wanted more. I wanted more. I wanted something different. So Let Me In kind of disappointed me. I was disappointed. I don't hate the movie. I was disappointed. All right, I rambled on that one for too long. Let's speed it up. 1408. This may surprise a lot of you. I thought this film was like just okay. And that's going to be surprising. I say surprising because a lot of you, when I mentioned this movie before, you commented and you said, oh my God, 1408 is so good, blah, blah, blah. You're singing the praises. And so I watched it one night, and at the end of it, I'm like, okay, it was good, but like, why is everyone like all about this movie for some reason? Like, it's a solid film. There's nothing wrong with the movie. I just wasn't like, wow, that's an amazing like, I didn't have that reaction. I don't know why. I don't know why. Maybe it's always going to be a mystery. I'll rewatch it again. I'm going to keep it in my collection, but I just wasn't blown away by it by any means. Not at all whatsoever. Chained is up next. Okay, so this one was a gamble when I first picked it up because it was on like a massive sale. It was so cheap. It was like $4 or $5.99. I picked it up, and just by like the cover, you're thinking like, what is this movie all about? Pretty much the basics of this film. You have Vincent D'Onofrio, who is a serial killer in this movie, and he's driving around in a taxi picking up women who eventually turn into his victims. It's not even a real cab company. He like wrote it in magic marker, like in a Sharpie or something. It's like so obvious. Anyway, it's not yellow cab. It's like mellow yellow. I don't even know. Like, he just made up a word, wrote it in Sharpie, and these women are thinking they're getting into an actual cab, but they never do. He brings them straight to his house and does what he feels he needs to do. Well, the whole hiccup in the story is that one lady that he decides to pick up has her son with her. And so he picks them up, does what he does with the mother, winds up keeping the boy. So the boy at the start of the movie is 9 years old. By the time the kid grows up, this is over a course of period of time, the kid grows up to be like young 20s, and this kid is still chained up in this guy's house. This kid has witnessed everything that the serial killer has been doing for at least 10 years. This kid has been his slave, his assistant. What's really interesting about this movie is that this movie is not about murder, because you never actually see the act happening. Vincent D'Onofrio comes in with his victim, drags her into a room, and shuts the door. You never see the actual killing. This movie focuses on like this disturbing relationship between the serial killer and the boy. That was really interesting to me because I don't recall seeing any other movie that really did that. And also on top of it, there's a twist in here that I did not see coming, that I was like rattled for two. I was like, whoa, where'd that come from? It like blew me away. So I highly recommend Chained because it's not overly graphic. There is, a couple of scenes where you do see blood. Of course, it's a horror film, but there's nothing overly graphic. You could definitely watch this and be okay and not be like completely grossed out, if you know what I'm saying. So I really recommend this one. I do. And it's a quick watch. It's only 94 minutes long. So if you need to watch something quick, pick up Chained. You will like it. I guarantee it. All right. It's very psychological too. I like those movies. All right. Hell Night is up next with Linda Blair. I mean, just look at the slipcover. How awesome is this? So the main plot line of this movie is that you have college kids. They are rushing their fraternities and sororities. And so these four students, rushies, whatever. Linda Blair's one of them. And they have to stay the night in this haunted house. There's like this big long story about, it's haunted. The family was killed by the father, whatever it is. So this is what they're doing the entire film. They're spending the night. I didn't mind the movie. What I minded was the length of the film, because even though this movie is only 101 minutes long, it felt like it was an eternity. The last little bit of the film went on way too long. You could have cut 20 minutes off of this movie and you still would have gotten the entire point beginning to end. It was just too long. That was my only complaint. Otherwise, I enjoyed it. I didn't have any other complaints about it. I mean, they could have like zhuzhed it up a little bit, could have made it a little bit more interesting, but it's like it's very basic. If you're new to horror, this is a good one because it's not overly scary. It's not going to overly freak you out. I don't remember any blood being shed in this movie, I don't think. I've watched a lot of horror films, so I can't really remember, but this is a great stepping stone into horror. So if you kind of like want something horror light, go with Hell Night because there's really nothing to it. Raising Cain. This movie was good. This movie was good and it was interesting, but most importantly, it reminds us how great of an actor John Lithgow is because he has multiple personalities in this film. Five multiple personalities are revealed in this movie. And he's just underrated because when you talk about actors and how great they are, who really says John Lithgow? We kind of go to the obvious ones, Leo, De Niro, Joaquin Phoenix. Like, those are the people that I always talk about. John Lithgow? Where's the John Lithgow love? Let me tell you. Because usually when he's in a movie, he is the standout or he is the highlight and he is the focus of this movie. And he wants you to know it because he is fantastic, takes on all these different roles and parts, and it's interesting. The movie is interesting. I will say that. I don't remember having any real complaints about this film. I enjoyed it, and I like the slipcover. There we go. So let's quickly move on into the next one. The Haunting. This is The Haunting with Catherine Zeta-Jones, very early in her career, and also Liam Neeson and Lily Taylor from The Conjuring. I can never remember her name. From The Conjuring, she's also in The Haunting. Also Owen Wilson. Randomly, Owen Wilson is thrown into this movie as well. So I guess I had some kind of expectations for this film, but unfortunately it just wasn't reached for some reason. I'm not really sure what I was expecting, but I feel like I was expecting a little bit more from this movie. It didn't really scare me too much because, as I mentioned, I'm just getting into ghosts and possession, and another reason why I wanted to watch a ghost movie, kind of, get in there a little bit more. And this one didn't really scare me. It was just like, okay, like that's what's happening. All right. It's kind of like a lot of buildup, and the ending, there was no great payoff. I mean, there is, but I just expected more for some reason. I'm not really sure why. Maybe I'm just building up horror films for no reason in my brain. I'm not really sure why I'm doing that, but it just seems to me like the movie just, it was just okay. It was just okay to me. So I'm going to keep it, obviously. It's Paramount Presents. I'm not going to get rid of this. But I'm happy that I didn't pick up the 4K, upgrade it, because I already have this one. I'm fine with this one. I do not need the 4K. I am good. This movie to me is not worth spending the money on and upgrading to a 4K. So I'm fine with my Paramount Presents. It was just all right. Night of the Creeps. There was a movie that defines 80s Velveeta cheese horror. It's this, okay? Night of the Creeps. I have to read you the description for you to even know what this movie is even about. This is about an alien experiment going awry when it crashes to Earth in 1959. And it infects a young college student. 27 years later, he is cryogenically frozen. He's thawed out. Okay, he was frozen. He's thawed out 27 years later by fraternity pledges, and then the campus is quickly overrun by alien creatures and they turn into zombies. What? Who thought of this? Who wrote this? Fred Decker wrote and directed this. I don't even know who that is. Did he make anything beyond Night of the Creeps? I'm not really sure. Tom Atkins is in this movie, who we know he was in The Fog and also from Halloween 3, Season of the Witch. We all know him from Halloween 3. He is like the detective or the cop in this movie. I forget his phrase, but what does he say? Thrill me or something like that? I don't know. He says this random phrase all the time. So weird. This movie is so weird. I'm going to have to watch it again because the entire time that I was watching it, I was kind of just like, what is happening in front of me? This movie was sent to me from a subscriber. I really do appreciate it. I appreciate the love. It's not like super high on my list to gravitate towards again, but I will someday in the future. Not right now, but someday. I will. That is so Velveeta cheese. But it's Velveeta cheese goodness. It's not garbage. It's goodness. This next movie kind of surprised me as well. It is called Dark Summer. This is about a high schooler. I believe he's, 17-year-old boy. He's under house arrest because he's been cyber stalking a classmate. Obviously online, cyber stalking. And while he's on house arrest, he's kind of tempted to do it again. And so he kind of like gets the itch. He has a couple of friends that he has that comes over to spend time with him. And something happens in this movie where it just completely flips. It flips the script. You thought you knew what was going on. You don't know what's going on. You don't know anything when it comes to this movie. Again, twists, turns. I like that when I don't see it coming. And this movie definitely had it. Kind of moves a little bit slow, but once it gets to the point where it gets going, and it's good the entire way through. So this was a great surprise. Really enjoyed that one. Okay. This one is a double pack, but I've already seen Dawn of the Dead numerous times. So I'm talking about Land of the Dead. Land of the Dead. Now, this one was written and directed by George A. Romero, right? Yes. George A. Romero. I know my horror people. George A. Romero wrote and directed Land of the Dead. You know what? This movie has a great cast. You have John Leguizamo, Dennis Hopper, Simon Baker. I'm thinking, wow, this is going to be a really great movie, but it was kind of just really basic zombie movie. Like, it didn't overly thrill me. I wasn't disappointed, and I probably said this about a previous film too, but I don't know. It's just been a lot of basic horror films this latest round. I'm not really sure why, but it just didn't really do anything for me. And I like zombie movies. They're not my number one go-to, but I enjoy them. But I was just kind of like, okay, this is just an okay movie. I wasn't overly thrilled. Out of these two, Dawn of the Dead all day over Land of the Dead. So, I mean, if this was, a single pack, I might be getting rid of Land of the Dead, but it's a double, so I'm not. I am keeping it. Sorry, Mel. I'm sorry, Mel. I mean, I love the original Lost Boys. She loves, and I do too. But as far as 2 and 3, these were not necessary. Not necessary at all whatsoever. I mean, the original Lost Boys is such an iconic 80s vampire film. We did not need sequels. Corey Feldman needed acting roles. That's what that was all about. Because what really, really annoyed me was the second movie is just flat out recycled material from the first film. Down to the fact that you have siblings moving to a brand new town. Oh gee, does that sound familiar? And they come across a group of vampires. Oh my god, does that sound familiar? It's the first movie. It's the first movie. It's the same exact plot line. Same exact plot line. Instead of brothers, you're using a brother and a sister. Woo, whoop-de-doo. That's the only difference. That is it. And then at the end of the movie, the post-credit scene or the mid-credit scene, where you have Corey Haim's character from the original film coming in as a vampire. What the heck is that all about? Okay? What is that? That's crap. That's what that is. That is crap. Ridiculous. And then part 3, I watched it last night. I'm not going to deny it. I fell asleep halfway through. So I'm just assuming third is garbage as well. I cannot imagine part 3 being like, wow, a Best Picture nominee. Like, it certainly is not. Not with Corey Feldman in this too. I mean, it's just so bad, so awful, so not necessary. So you don't need to pick this up. As long as you have the first movie, you're good. That's it. I only picked this up because I wanted that retro slipcover, and I've never seen the movies, obviously. I wanted to give them a chance, but this is going to be a regret. This is going to be a pickup regret because those movies sucked. All right. This next one surprised me. And I know I'm getting all red. I'm looking at myself while I'm filming. Oh my gosh, I look like a tomato. All right, story of my life. Here we go. Moving on to Ravenous. I really enjoyed this one. This one surprised me because the plot line, the storyline, I wasn't really sure how I was going to feel about it because I don't, surprisingly enough, I don't gravitate towards cannibal movies, okay? But that's what this is, but it's done in a certain way. It's not overly graphic. You're not seeing like, you know, you see stuff, but it's not like you can't handle it. If I could handle this movie, anyone could handle this movie. So what's going on in this film is, this is again old-timey time period. I'm thinking Civil War. I'm guessing by the clothes, the style of the outfits that they wore in the movie. I'm not good with history, but I'm guessing Civil War period. I tried to see if it's on the back here, and it's not. So I'm thinking during the Civil War, and you have an isolated military group, and one day this random strike that, reverse it. This random guy, this random stranger, there we go, right here, this guy right over here, randomly kind of stumbles into their military group, and it turns out he's in need of like medical assistance, and you know, he's tired, he's been walking for a while, so they take him into the group, not knowing that he's a cannibal. He is a cannibal, and he lies to them and says like, oh, the group that I came from, they're the ones that did everything and I escaped. When it's reversed. We find out that he's the one that actually did it. It's a very interesting movie because it does twist and turn, and it makes you question things because his belief of cannibalism is, if you do this, you grow strong, you heal faster, you kind of rise to a different level, you're godlike. That's what this guy believes with what he does. And our lead character here, played by Guy Pearce, is, you know, anti all of that, doesn't want to have anything to do with it. But other people start to question it. It's a very interesting movie. I found this very, very interesting, believe it or not. A cannibal film I found interesting. But that's because it kind of like poses questions. It throws questions, like moral questions at you. And it's not about the killing. It doesn't focus on that. It makes you focus on, what would you do in the situation? Would you choose to do it? You know, like things like that. So it was kind of me following along with this and like answering these questions that kept popping up for myself. And that's what I found interesting. So I enjoyed Ravenous, believe it or not. Yes, I did. Scary. I'm messing up, but you know what? I am not redoing this video. We're already a half hour in. We got to move this along. Scary stories to tell in the dark. There we go. Because I can't talk. I can never talk. All right, scary stories. It's in the title, scary. Where was the scariness? I wanted scary. I just didn't find this overly scary because I expected it to be that because it's in the title name, but I was like, okay, where's the scary? I was just surprised. I expected more out of it, in particular because Guillermo del Toro is attached to the project. What did he do? It just says screen story. I'm not sure if he wrote this or what, but like I just thought he was going to deliver more out of this. I was kind of a little let down with this one too. Don't get me wrong, I enjoyed it. Destiny sent me this copy. Destiny, I did enjoy it. I just wanted more. I thought more was going to happen, more scary, more afraid, and it just didn't deliver the scary enough for me. So, did I say scary enough? I'm not really sure. All right. What? Silent Hill. This movie was sent to me from someone as well. This one was interesting, a lot going on, and I just went with it because I'm like, you know what? I'm already an hour in. I'm not going to stop now. I'm finishing it. It was like a quest to finish this movie. Starts off with this couple. They have an adopted daughter, and right in the beginning of the movie, she's sleepwalking, and they catch her right before she like falls off a cliff or something. And she starts shouting, "Silent Hill! Silent Hill!" Can I just tell you that if your kids are sleepwalking and they start yelling out Silent Hill or any other town name, don't take them there, because that's the moral of the story in my belief with this movie. Because what the mother ends up doing, she ends up taking her daughter to Silent Hill. She looks it up, she finds it, she takes her to Silent Hill, and then all hell breaks loose. There's so much going on in this movie, so many weird characters, weird people, strange creatures, all of this on the cover is happening in this movie. So, lesson be learned to you, all parents out there. Don't take your kids to Silent Hill, because nothing good is going to come out of it. I did enjoy the movie though. I did. And the ending left me questioning. And I believe there is a sequel. And I think what I heard is that the sequel kind of answers that for you, but I wish they just answered it in the movie itself. But I don't mind the ending. I'm kind of okay with it, where with the next movie I'm going to talk about, I'm not okay with that ending, but I was okay with this ending. But what a trip this movie was. Oh my Lord. All right. We're down to the final two movies. I hope you got a drink and a snack and you're sticking with me, because you're going to want to hear my thoughts about the last film. I guarantee it. All right. Second to last movie, The Turning. I had already knew, strike that, reverse it again. I already knew about the ending. I didn't know about the ending, but I knew that it cuts off, that there is no complete ending. The movie pretty much just shuts down. And I knew that because I think this came out last year or 2 years ago, and I had heard movie reviews, people talking about it. So I already knew going in, I'm probably going to be frustrated. This movie is from a book, an older book, The Turning of the Screw or something like that. Or I don't know. It's based off of some literature from the past. I really cannot talk today. So we have this woman right here, who we know from Terminator Dark Fate. That is our lead character right there. And she goes to work as a private teacher slash nanny or something for this little girl. We also have creepy brother from Stranger Things, and he gets expelled from his school. So he comes home, back at home, and he treats her like garbage. And we're pretty much wondering what's going on here. We know there's a ghostly element in the house, and she's trying to put all the pieces together. Her mom is also a loop-de-loo, and all these things are going on, right? Then we get to the end of the movie, and I'm like settling in. I'm like, okay, what's going to happen here? We're going to figure this out. And literally the movie just ends. The credits start rolling, and I'm like, what? You are left with no answers. It's one of those where you have to decide for yourself, is she crazy? Did this really happen? It's like one of those two. Is she crazy, or did it really happen? You know what? if I wanted to figure out my own ending or write my own ending, I think I should be credited as a screenwriter for this project because I like a complete film. Call me crazy, but I like to have an ending. I like to have a complete movie. So this one did not thrill me, unfortunately. Now, granted, I already kind of knew where it was going, but watching it in front of me in person was even more disappointing. So this one was just, and you know what? For worst haircut, this was so, the entire movie. I'm like, do something with your hair. It was so horrible. Not you know, like mine's like all, I do the same thing every day. I'm simple. I'm Simple Sue. But like, this is like the Dutch boy from the freaking paint can. Like, she's looking awful on the, oh my God, the entire film. She looked like garbage. I just wanted to see a different hairstyle from her. That's all. But I'm not one to talk. All right, the final film. This is the worst of this batch, and I know you're probably wondering, is she going to throw it? Oh, yes, I am, because it is Suspiria. This is the remake of the original film. Now, keep in mind, I've never seen the original movie before, so I had no preconceived notion. There we go, of what this movie was about. This was a random pickup last year at Bull Moose when I met up with all the other YouTubers, and this was my first time watching it. And the main reason I picked it up is because of my new love of Mia Goth from seeing her in X and Pearl. She's in this movie, clearly, name right there. Also, Dakota Johnson's in this film as well. So I'm thinking, okay, this might be pretty decent. I read the back of it. It sounded interesting. This movie goes to levels of insanity and creepiness that I've never seen in my entire life. I literally did not know what the hell was going on, what was happening. Dakota Johnson is a dancer, okay? She gets accepted to this dance academy in Berlin. Now, the head, like, mistress of the academy and the one that choreographs routines, she's the one that you want to impress. She's played by Tilda Swinton, just so you guys know, getting our characters straight, our actors. And then beyond Tilda Swinton, you have an entire female-led staff of the dance academy, okay? And right off in the beginning of the movie, you know weird and wacky stuff is happening, but you don't even know how weird and wacky it gets until the very end of the movie, and it just goes off the rails completely. So slowly it's revealed that all the female staff members are like witches, I guess. They're like this group. They're evil. They are not nice. They are evil. They're like two sides of the coin. They're two-faced. That's what they are. They're two-faced. And at the end of the movie, the final... it's embarrassing to talk about. Look at my face. But the end of this movie is so completely head-scratching. What the effing? Like, you don't even know. Literally what happens is, I guess Dakota Johnson realizes that she is necessary for a certain sacrifice. She like comes to this epiphany that this is what she's meant for. This is why she's there. So she's sauntering downstairs in this like barely there, so sheen outfit, barely covering her front area, if you know what I mean. Completely ridiculous. Who wears an outfit like that to be sacrificed? So she's walking down these steps and she's like ready for her moment. She knows she's going to be sacrificed or transplanted. I don't even know what they were doing. I don't even know what they were doing. Tilda Swinton, you could tell she really doesn't want to do this because she kind of has like feelings for Dakota Johnson's character. I'm like, what is this? Like, what is going on? But all the other female staff members are like dancing. Everyone's naked, by the way. Everyone is naked. Boobs for days. Like, I saw so many boobs in this movie. I was like, wow, that's way too much for one film. And not the kind you want to see either, because all these female staff members are not all young and attractive, if you get my drift. Okay, so like, I saw a lot of stuff that I didn't need to see. It was very, very confusing. I know. I will never watch this movie again. Plus, it was so long. Over 2 hours. It was almost 2.5 hours of weirdness. And that's way too much for me. So because of that, Suspiria, I'm sorry. You know what I gotta do. And I'm not keeping you. I'm literally getting rid of you. You get thrown across the room. So that is everything that I have been watching lately. Comment down below and let me know what you've been watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe before you leave, and I'll see you next time.